Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a vehicle that you think you recognize, but, well, you don't. And the reason why is because this is not a Toyota Land Cruiser, although the shape is very similar. In fact, the overall design from the outside is very similar. In fact, they have a lot in common because this is also a hybrid of sorts. And in terms of the overall dimensions, well, this is about 1 inch shorter in terms of overall length, and its wheelbase is just over 1.5 inches shorter in terms of length. But otherwise, it's an off-road vehicle. It's very boxy, has a similar shape. It is the Fengcheng Bao. Fengcheng Bao. I think I got that just about right. Better stated as the Leopard 5. That's what they're going with. And Bao means either leopard or panther. And there you go. It's built in China. It is part of a subsidiary of BYD, one of the largest automakers in the world, especially if you think about how many electric vehicles they make. However, this is not entirely electric. As a matter of fact, there's a turbocharged 1.5 liter gas engine under this hood and a massive battery that it connects to. So in this video, I'm going to take you around the vehicle. I'm going to talk about its details. We're going to do a short drive, and I want to get your take on it. And essentially what we're doing is just a basic drive. I do not have the opportunity to go off-road right now, which would be epic because that's what this thing is built for. However, just getting a general idea of what 677 horsepower combined feels like. Yeah, that sounds like, give me more of that. Special shout out to our friends at D-Car for making this vehicle available for us to shoot. Yes, it is in a busy area, but nonetheless, at least I have an opportunity to drive it and show you guys. And that's really what it's all about, because you would just never see one of these on Western roads. And that's kind of a shame because this thing is so unique and has so many unusual features compared to what we're used to. Let me explain. This is absolutely a proper off-roader, and it absolutely isn't all at the same time. There is a frame underneath here, so it's a proper body on frame, but there are no solid axles. More importantly, there is no actual mechanical gearbox leading to the rear of the vehicle to engage the rear end. Nope, that's an electric motor, very similar to what you would get in a Toyota, any number of their hybrids like the RAV4 hybrid and whatnot. Same type of idea, electric motor back there, but it's special, and I'll get to that in a second. You see, as I mentioned earlier, this is a hybrid, but it's not a hybrid like the Toyota Land Cruiser. No, this is a hybrid in terms of plug-in hybrid. There's a 31 kilowatt hour battery inside this. That's huge. And it has a 1.5 liter turbocharged engine that powers the front wheels through an eCVT. So, a little different, right? Yet, it has front and rear lockers. Shall we begin on the exterior styling, at least up front? This is the company's very interesting but rather large logo, and it leads to a fairly squared off grille, LED headlights with projection right there. And these are driving lights that go throughout. So if we were in a darker environment, you should be able to see these. I'll see if I can get some images of that in just a bit. That bumper is pretty much all plastic. Oh, and by the way, so that grille, I just got the key out here. Here's the key. Now check this out. This thing is actually really beefy. It's metal, but there's the design. The first part of its name actually means formula, like a mathematical formula. So I think that that is part of it. And then the other part of that is panther or leopard, hence the name Leopard 5. And I'm thinking because of the passenger capacity for the initial model. Down here, that is all plastic, but if you go a little bit further, there we go. That's the metal skid plate, that black one right there. And yes, there is recovery hooks over here and over here. Combined power. Now there's two electric motors. There's one 1.5 liter turbocharged engine. Total output, 677 horsepower, 560 pound-feet of torque. Damn. Because of that, this vehicle has been clocked from 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds. Considering its weight of over 6,000 pounds, you heard me correct, that is pretty remarkable. It's a lot of torque, but then again, electric motors, right? But there's more. First of all, this has an eCVT. Now, I am not 100% sure on whether it is an actual continuously variable transmission, or with that E, is it similar to a planetary gear set system that they simply call eCVT. I wasn't able to find that out. If any of you guys find out, please let me know. I would imagine it would probably be a more robust system if it were the planetary gear set, but it's just guesstimation, right? Okay, but this vehicle, 32 kilowatt hour battery, right? So despite its shape, it's basically shaped like a brick, it has up to 62 miles of all electric range, which is fairly impressive, right? I don't have actual MPG numbers, but the fact that they're saying it has around 1,500 kilometers of range, right? Now, that is based on their cycle and their testing. And as I've found, EPA numbers versus European numbers that we get from China, they tend to be a little bit different. EPA tends to be a little bit harder on these vehicles, but nonetheless, let's just say it's 600 miles range or something like that. That sounds pretty realistic to me. And if that's the case, then this is this is actually a relatively efficient vehicle, but more importantly, one that can get you off the beaten path and hopefully back, right? Very cool. This vehicle can work as a generator like a lot of other plug-in hybrids. So it can power a campsite. It can also power a work site. I believe the 220 will work as long as the vehicle is working like a generator. But I don't know for sure how much you can actually draw out of it over the long term. With the battery capacity being what it is, I would imagine that as long as the battery is relatively full, which this thing can charge as it's driving, by the way, and it does have regenerative braking, you should be able to increase the battery's capacity, get it to its highest level of 31 kilowatt hours, I guess, and be able to use that pretty much wherever. And they really wanted this to be a luxury vehicle that you can take camping. That seems to be their theme. From here, you can actually see the frame, okay? And this is a normal spring setup in coils for all four wheels. And it also has AA arm suspension all around, meaning, of course, independent suspension, but also meaning that it does not have a solid rear axle. Okay, the reason I mention that is because this rear wheel, both of them, well, they're powered by an electric motor. But aside from it being an electric motor, it actually has a reducing gear that works essentially like a low gear range. So it can drop down into this gear, making essentially the rear end behave like it's going through a transfer case, like on a standard 4x4, but it's all electric power going to the rear. Now, the good news is that all electric power means that you have immediate torque. Of course, the bad news is that you're relying on an electric motor and there's extra weight. As I said, this thing weighs over 6,000 pounds. Remember how I said it doesn't have a hydraulic suspension? I think what they meant to say was that that hydraulic suspension on the higher end version of this is meant for full suspension assist. This lifts the vehicle. And here's my problem. Now that I know it does that mean that this thing is higher than 8.7 inches when I fully lift it? Let's find out. Okay, clearly there's been a miscommunication because that is now sitting much higher than 8.7 inches. I'd say close to 11 inches altogether. And then you can get a much better shot of that double wishbone suspension, at least the top of it up here. And you can clearly see the frame now right over there. So yeah, this thing, even in the mid-level, does lift itself up. I think that what they were talking about in terms of the high-level hydraulic suspension is that is a fully active suspension, whereas this one is lifting and dropping the vehicle. Yeah, because you can clearly see the coil springs there and all that. So, yeah. So it does have lift, but it doesn't have the active suspension. But that also means that that 8.7 inches that they told me, or at least that I read about, yeah, this is way higher than that. And I looked underneath. I don't see anything that would catch below, say, 11 inches. If you look real carefully, see if I can focus in on that a little bit, there is large shielding in that area underneath the vehicle. You can clearly see the independent suspension, by the way. So underneath this vehicle, sandwiched between the frame, is what they call a blade battery. And it's similar to the way Ford did it with the F-150 Lightning, where they take the battery and then the frame, and they use the frame to kind of crimp in on it, and then they have armor underneath the battery. Well, here's another cool thing I just noticed that I didn't see before. It's actually got dual exhausts. There's one over there and one over there. This is something that's a little unnecessary. This isn't actually a handle that you yank on. You just hit the button and it pops. But I'll show you the benefit of that a little bit later. It's assisted with opening. This is around 16.7 cubic feet of cargo space here. All right. And in the deluxe version of this, or the high-end version of this, the seats are power folding. But in this case, I believe all I have to do is push. And if I move the headrest down, they would fold relatively flat. So overall space is 37.7 cubic feet of cargo space with all the seats folded on the back. And then there's this. Not a ton of space, but a little extra space plus tire repair kit. 12 volt, 180 watt over there. 220. What? No, really? If I can get it open. Maybe I'm not allowed to open it. Oh, maybe I'm an idiot and I don't know how to open it. Bear in mind that this is set up to use not a Western adapter that we're used to. Yeah. But still, 220. Very cool. Large speaker back here. These little port windows, I don't really think that they would be very functional, but it does break up the huge rear pillar. All right, let's go inside, shall we? A lot quieter, that's for sure. All right. First of all, power seats that have heating, cooling, and massage. Keep that in mind. I wanted to show off this door panel. The reason why is because I was recently in a Toyota Land Cruiser, and I didn't like the hard materials they had on the door panel, considering how much you're paying. This is all soft touch material. Real metal, so fairly high quality. Good padding. Yeah, everything feels fairly premium. I am not familiar with this sound system. However, I believe you can get either like a 12, 16, or 18 speaker setup, depending on the trim level that you get on this vehicle. That's a lot. I'm curious to what you guys think of this type of design, by the way. I've seen inserts, yeah, where you can pop these in. This looks kind of interesting. I kind of like that. All right. Dash materials here, once again, soft touch everywhere. Here's the seating surfaces. It's higher quality than you might think. All right, let's get in, shall we? Guys, I got to show you what they left on here. I think their hero worship's a little off kilter. That's Doug DeMuro. He's got a still image on the screen. This, yeah, just, I can't, right? Okay. 12.3 inch screen, 12.3 inch passenger screen, a Doug DeMuro special, and I believe that is 15.6 inches. The cool thing here is that the functionality is based on actual hard buttons. Thank God. German automakers, please take note. This is what we want. Maybe not crystal, I don't know. This is a little, it's just not my thing, but everything here is, even if you don't speak Chinese, because you can see there's some Chinese characters here, pretty logical and easy enough to go through. I believe this is, let's see here. These are different drive settings on this one, and then over here, volume control. Pretty simple. Overall controls, not too crazy on the controls in terms of there's not that many, which is good. I can't stand it when there's so many that you have to concentrate on your steering wheel rather than the road. So it looks like driver assist is over here with cruise control. And then over here is essentially infotainment and phone. Let's look down here. This is the stuff I'm interested in, though. All right. So you have your front locker. You have your rear locker. I wish I could test these off-road, guys. I'm sorry I can't. This is like a quick parking lot review. They're being nice enough to let me at least get a little sample of it. But in time, I am hoping that I can convince them to let me take this off-road because I really want to off-road it. Is this just fan control? It sure is. So this is just fan control. So over here, volume control, fan control, defrost. Over here, off-road systems, drive modes. I'm going to click through a few of the modes here on this giant screen. I'm guessing these are for different terrain. Oh my God, look at that graphic. That is awesome. And then there's for snow. That's so cool. All right, let's do desert. Awesome. I was just in Arizona. Okay. And then, yeah, that's very similar to Moab, Utah. That's awesome. Okay. And then we've got, looks like dirt road. There's a lot of different functions with this thing. Rocky terrain, I'm guessing that's what it means. No idea what that means. And so I'm just not going to, I'm not going to use it. I don't want to ruin their car. Oh, and this. Now, this is something very interesting. You have to tell it what terrain you're on, okay? But do you remember that in the Ford Tremor version of the F-150, we tested a control system that allowed you to to actually brake one of the inside wheels so you could do a tighter turn, right? And this changed the turning radius from, let's say, 30 feet to 20 feet or something like that, right? That was just this number off. I pulled it out of where. But in this case, selecting the different terrain, I think that's an okay. I'm not going to do that. Allows you to do a similar thing with this rear end setup that I was telling you was a trick setup. So it also has that low gearing. It also can take that wheel, retard its rotation, and thus allow you to swing around and do a very tight turn. Not a tank turn. Whoops. Sorry. Not a tank turn, but a much, much tighter turn. I think that the turning radius of this thing drops to like 11 or less in terms of feet, in terms of being able to do a U-turn. Maybe it's 20. Doesn't matter. It's really short. Okay. And that system, that's what this allows you to do. Overall, I'm actually pretty impressed. Oh, can I show you something else that I really like? See this? It's not just a design. It's an, oh no, handle. There's other names for it. I like this because when you're getting into the vehicle, there's no handle up here. And so being able to use this to get in, especially for shorter people, that makes a lot of sense. Yes, there is, the mandatory pedal, assist to get in and out of the vehicle. But whatever. I just find those things to be a bit of a hindrance when you're off-roading and you smack one and then it's ruined and then you have to spend $1,400 to fix it, which friends of mine have had to do. Now, before we're done with the interior walk around, wanted to show you one more thing. What that? Ho ho! Your eyes do not deceive you, my friends. You are looking at a cooler/heater. So I believe it'll go down to roughly around, it won't go to full frozen, but it will get to refrigerator temperatures, and then it'll get to very warm temperatures. I don't know if you could heat a frozen burrito in there or something, but you can warm food, and then you can also chill food. And it looks like somebody's been using it for the chilling factor. And this is the cool part. This is in Celsius, but you can use this to go to down or up, but I'm not going to be a jerk and make it too. Let's see how it goes though. Curious. Oh, I get it. If you hit this and it goes to warm, then it goes to cool. That is so easy and intuitive to use. So the cup holders, nonetheless, I'm glad they're there, but look how close they are to these buttons. I have like those big monster coffee cups and all that, so that might make using some of these buttons a bit of an issue, you know, if I'm driving. Just a little FYI. But overall, the front seat is comfortable. I have really good headroom. All right, now it's the fun part. I get to go inside. Same door materials, by the way, as the front, which is great, so you don't have to suffer being a backseat passenger. I am sitting behind myself. Once again, I'm around 6'1", and I got some pretty good space. Front feet, and I have large feet, size 13, and I'm wearing boots, and I'm able to put them underneath the seat in front of me. That's a plus, because in many vehicles I can't do that. I don't think there's any real adjustment to the seat. As far as I know, this is just built to clip into this one angle. Let me see if there's anything else it could do. Oh, there's another grab handle right here. Yeah, I think that's about it. There is a cup holder here. There's USB and USB-C, 2 vents, and then, ooh, these are not only cooled, but heated. Or not only heated, but cooled. Or ventilated. Turning radius is super tight, and that's without that rear end doing its little thing. It's got this trick rear end. I think I mentioned it already. It's known as intelligent torque control. Instead of it working like a torque vectoring rear end, it also can work like a locker. And also it can slow the rotation of your inside wheel to the point to where it decreases your turning circle significantly. So I'm going to just make a U-turn. I'm in a parking lot right now, and as you can see, my turning circle is about 1.5 lanes wide. This thing turns on a dime. Some people might have a real issue with the amount of science that they packed into this, because if you think about it, the idea of having an ECVT mixed in with lockers, mixed in with 2 electric motors, mixed in with a turbocharged 1.5 liter engine, I mean, all of that is just mind-boggling to some people. Yet, this is efficient, looks like it's very capable, it's extremely comfortable inside, and it has a ton of tech. I gotta tell you, I am impressed. Let us know what you think in the comments below. I'll see you next time.